What's up, YouTube? Today, I want to take you guys through how I go about making what I think of as a more traditional dub bass. And I often write bass lines on the electric bass guitar, and then in my production, prefer the sound of the steadiness of a synth bass. So let's take a look at the sound I'm talking about, and I'll walk you guys through how to make it. All right, so this is the bass in question. Let's hop into Vital and recreate the patch from scratch. So I'm going to initialize the preset. And the first thing I do is I turn up this attack a little bit, because that tiny 0.001 of attack helps it not click when the MIDI hits. And then I'm going to bring this oscillator down, shift, click, and drag down for an octave in one sweep like that. And we're going to turn the phase randomization to 0 so it starts at the same point in the wave every time. And we're going to grab our basic shapes sine wave. And a lot of people like to keep their sub clean, and so this is optional. I kind of like on a dub bass to color the sound a little bit. And if you're on good speakers or headphones, you should be able to hear this. But here's the clean sub versus adding a little bit of color with this even harmonic here. Here's what it sounds like if I exaggerate it. It's kind of sounds a little bit like the octave above, but it's just ever so slightly different. So I go for just a touch so you can barely notice it, and I feel like that adds a nice little bit of fullness to the sub in the sort of lower mid-range. So we're going to get a little bit more of that, because what we're going to do is, grab another basic shapes. And we're not going to pitch this one down. We're going to set the phase to 0 as well. And then this is going to filter 2, and we're going to come down here and do this, and then drag LFO1 over onto the cutoff. Now we're going to fiddle with this later, but let's turn the smooth down. And then I like to work in seconds when I go into envelope mode, because then if you take your patch into another song, you don't have to worry that if the BPM is different, it's gonna sound completely different. So, especially after dialing this in. All right, so what we're gonna do is this envelope here, we're gonna drag it down like this and fiddle with it until we get a little punch. And I think we're gonna switch this, there we go, over to the analog 24. So let's see what this sounds like. This is about what we're looking for here. I don't know if you can hear that. And we're going to mix that in. Cool. Now you can use the bass just like this. It sounds pretty good in context. It's like pretty vanilla dub bass. It's got some nice punch, and if you're going for like a rootsy vibe, it's not bad. But where it gets kind of cool, I think, is how you layer the high end of the bass on. And right now there isn't much. It's a pretty dull tone, which is traditional in reggae music. But what I did was to be able to just audition sounds as I created a folder in my, you can open a file location and go over here and create whatever samples you want to use in this sample oscillator here. And I created a bunch of samples, a muted guitar, another guitar, piano, cool things to layer on top of the sound to get a nice tone. I think this muted electric guitar is my favorite. And we'll mix that in. You'll see what it sounds like. Oops. Oh, key track it. It's a great sound. Really helps you hear the bass. Now I'm making it really obvious, but I kind of like to have it like subtly so that like synth bass has just a touch of that like actual guitar tone in there. Let's check out the, here's another flavor. And I mean, sky's the limit here. You can put anything behind it as a layer. But again, this muted guitar I think is my favorite. You know, sometimes in a track, I'll just do another layer so that sometimes I'll put different guitar amps on it, different reverbs on just this layer. But it's kind of nice just to have it in Vital while you're working, just to get a nice tone. It doesn't sound bad, it's totally usable. You can also drive this filter a little. Or a lot. Speaking of saturation, I often throw Saturn or any other distortion on here. Sometimes, if you want to keep your sub clean, you can drop it there and just drive it a little harder, you know, above 125. And then I'll often use a little bit of compression. And what I do is I just want to control the peaks a little bit so I can maybe get a little more volume out of it. But what you don't, I soften the knee or harden the knee a little bit. And I like the opto on this one. The most important thing is you don't want a fast attack. You want a slower attacks to let that transient of the bass, that punch come through. And then can't go wrong with the auto release. You just want to see it moving with each bass hit. And the next thing I might check here is my kick is at -7, so I want my bass to peak at -8. That'll give me a good ratio. And then I've got this on my bus and I can adjust to make sure the low end is right for my whole mix down the road when I hopefully turn this into a track here, because I think it's a good start. Well, that's pretty much it for the bass, but if you've made it this far in the video, I'll show you one other thing that I like to do on dub tracks, and that is with this rim here or the snare, depending on if you're using a rim or a snare or a combination of each. This is what it sounds like. It's got a fair amount of reverb on it. I like that for everything in dub, except for the super low end maybe. But what we're gonna do here is grab Volcano, which we're gonna use because it's new and it's fun, but you can do this with any EQ or filter or even a little bit of distortion as long as you can vary it up a bit. But we're gonna turn this to a high pass. We're gonna turn this to a bell. And then we're gonna grab an XLFO and change it to 1/8, turn the glide down, and we're going to randomize, drag it over to the frequency. And you'll see it's gonna jump around on the 8th note, sample and hold style. And let's use a tube one. Why not? Sounds good. All right, and then we're gonna do this again. We're gonna grab another bell, pull that down, change that to, let's do smooth, drive it a little bit, 1/8, random, here we go, to the frequency, we got that jumping around, looks a little too smooth, boom, there we go. Now they're jumping around, and we're going to do it one more time. Another LFO. Set it to random. And then this peak, this new one, we'll go, there we go. Easy. Put it right in here, and we'll make them dance. Drive that. And lastly, pull that in. There we go. Now each rim shot is totally random and interesting, but you know, it still feels like the same rim shot. Which is pretty fun for dub. Cool. Well, if you like the video, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.